Congratulations, WA Carers WA. I just wanted to say today has been absolutely wonderful. We've heard from people who are academics, politicians, CEOs, and we've heard from you, our carers as well. And although we come from different walks of life, we're all joined together by that common thread of caring, aren't we? So, Australia's aged care system is complex and confusing. There are multiple assessments, fragmented service provision, conflicting advice, and a delay in people accessing the services they need. And people who are carers who just want to support their older loved ones at home get tired and they get frustrated and then they give up because it's just too hard. So I'm a registered nurse. I'm also an author. I published my book about Australia's aged care system 2 years ago because I wanted to empower people with the knowledge and know-how of this complex aged care system. In March of this year, we launched our podcast, which is called Your Aged Care Compass, for the same reason, to give people the information that they need to get timely access to supporting older loved ones at home. I was also a carer for my dad who had Alzheimer's disease, and I supported my family to care for my dad at home, which is where he died. Dad also had 4 strokes in the last year of his life and ended up in hospital each time, and it was an extremely difficult year for our family. Dad died in January of 2018 at home. My mum is still with us, and her needs are high and complex too, and she receives a level 4 home care package under the aged care system, but it is woefully inadequate to meet her needs. So my sisters and I supplement the support that she gets under that home care package, but it's still not enough. So we have a little kitty of funding that we were saving for a rainy day, and we're now dipping into that to help us to provide the level of support that mum needs at home. Caring for my parents is something that is a real privilege to me and something that I would never change. But it is physically exhausting and it's emotionally demanding, and at times it's really psychologically challenging too. So how did I do it? How did we do it? And how are you going to do it? How are you going to get the support that your older loved one's needs from this very complex system? This afternoon, I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you how to enter the aged care system and keep moving on the right path to get the support that you need at home. I'm going to explain to you what My Aged Care is, who is eligible for in-home aged care programs, who the assessment teams are, and what the programs are that they assess for. So My Aged Care is the gateway to aged care, Commonwealth subsidised aged care services in Australia. It's a call centre or a contact centre. My Aged Care screens people for further assessment. My Aged Care does not assess people. Just lost my screen here. So, one of the big things that we hear every week, now we support people across Australia because the aged care system is Commonwealth funded. So one of the things that often is fed back to us is that people have contacted My Aged Care and been told that they're not eligible for support. And what we need to recognise here is that although My Aged Care is the gateway, they can get it wrong sometimes. So who is eligible for support under the aged care system? Well, looking at age, it's 65 years of age and older, or if you identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, it's 50 years and older. And you need help to do the things that you used to do. It's that simple, or it should be. These reasons here are actual reasons that people have told us when they've called My Aged Care that they're not eligible for support. And all these reasons here are absolutely incorrect. So people have been told that they're not eligible because they have a carer. So logic dictates, doesn't it, that if you have a carer, you need quite a bit of support. People have been told that they're not eligible if they can still drive, and that was what my mother was told as well. And when we corrected that, my mum was approved for a level 2 home care package. People are told that they're not eligible if they can still cook. Now, the little scenario that I use here that creates the distinction between can you cook and can you not. Putting a piece of bread in the toaster in the evening and having a cup of tea is not cooking. Reheating a meal that your family member or your carer has prepared for you during the week and you pop it in the microwave, that's not cooking as well. So cooking we typically think is what we as able-bodied people, meat and 3 veg, the casserole at night, that's cooking. So that's the distinction between having a piece of toast for dinner or really being able to cook. And people have been told that they're not eligible because they can shower themselves. So when people are being screened by My Aged Care, this question will come up. And it's a difficult one for people to answer because they don't want to be forthcoming in saying, well, I don't ever have a shower, because there's a social stigma around that. So people will say, yes, I can have a shower when they're standing at the bathroom sink and giving themselves a bit of a sponge 2 or 3 times a week. But in the context of screening, this would be an incorrect answer because it's not reflecting what the person's needs really are. So who are the assessment teams? At this point in time right now, there are 2 assessment teams. So at entry level, there's a workforce called the Regional Assessment Service, or the RAS. These RAS teams sit right across the country. Now, typically, they're a non-clinical workforce, and by that I mean that these RAS teams, don't tend to have nurses or physiotherapists or occupational therapists within their teams. There are some that do, but on the whole that they don't. The next level up is the Aged Care Assessment Team, or the ACATs. Now, these teams are only clinicians, so they typically consist of nurses, such as myself. I used to be an ACAT assessor, occupational therapists, psychologists, social workers and physiotherapists. Now, this is changing as we speak, and some of you might be aware that a month ago it was announced that the new Aged Care Act had been tabled in Parliament. So these 2 workforces are going to be merged, or they are merging as we speak, to be one workforce, which will be fully implemented by July next year. The programs that these 2 assessment workforces... Sorry, something's happened with my slides here. So the programs that these 2 workforces are approved for, at entry level, it's called the Commonwealth Home Support Program, or CHISP. And this bucket of funding is held by providers. And I'll explain a little more in detail on the next slide. At the next level, the aged care assessment teams approve for home care packages, which many of you might have already heard of, and other programs that come under the flexible care funding, such as transition care program and the short-term restorative care program. So down the left side of the screen, this is what the system currently looks like. So we have the 2 assessment workforces. At entry level, on the left side of your screen, is that non-clinical workforce, or the Regional Assessment Service, who approve for services under the Commonwealth Home Support Program, or CHISP. Now, this program we regard as fragmented or fragmented service provision. Providers at entry level hold the funding. The funding is not allocated to the person as such. So providers hold the funding. Now, not all providers have the type of funding to deliver the services that a person may be approved for. So at entry level, a person might get some referral codes, which are the approvals, and it might be for domestic assistance, transport, social support, and lawn mowing, for instance. Now, you are not going to get one provider. I've not come across one provider anywhere in the country who could deliver all 4 services. So it's likely that you'll have at least 2, possibly 3 or 4 different providers offering those services at entry level. At the next level up with the aged care assessment team, it changes. It's regarded as coordinated service provision. And this is because the funding is allocated to the person. So at entry level, the funding sits with the provider. At the next level up, the funding sits with the person. It still has to go via your chosen provider, but the funding is allocated to you. So it means that you can choose your own provider, and that provider will coordinate all those services for you. So if you needed those same 4 services that you previously had at entry level, when you move up to a home care package, if you want to keep those kind of services, your home care package provider will coordinate them for all for you. So equating services as we currently, the current system in the aged care system, it's difficult to place a dollar value on entry level because people may get 1 service at entry level or they may get 2 or 3 or 4. So it's difficult to place a dollar value on that. When you move up to the next level and you're approved for a home care package, the lowest level of package being a level 1 is just over $10,500 per year in funding. And then it goes up to a level 4 home care package, which is just over $61,500 over 12 months. The flexible care programs, the one that really relates to people who are living at home, is called short-term restorative care, which is an excellent program and one that we try to get everybody on because it's so good. But the funding for that program, which is an 8-week program, it's short, as the name suggests, is $14,000 over 8 weeks. So some reasonable funding. And with short-term restorative care, the goal is to get people to retain or regain their function and well-being, and it gives them that amount of money because it's clinician-led. So it's all about getting occupational therapists and exercise physiologists and physiotherapists, dietitians, any kind of clinician involved in the person's care to help them regain their well-being and independence. So jumping ahead to July next year, this is what it's going to look like. So it looks kind of similar, but there are some differences. So what's happening now, and this was one of the recommendations from the Royal Commission in that merged workforce, the ACATs and the RAS assessors joining to become one workforce, was to simplify the assessment process and make it easier and more efficient for everybody, really. Now that's happening right now. So there was an open tender earlier this year, and it was extremely competitive because there was a big, there was a lot of funding up for grabs. So the state health departments were successful in lobbying to retain their current ACATs. So they've gotten about 40% of the funding, and then it's going to be divvied up to all the successful tenders. Now, it's not been publicly released who they are. We're waiting for that to be announced yet. But the implication is that from the middle of next year, if you or, an older loved one is going through My Aged Care and you're sitting at that level where your needs are higher and more complex, your referral might go to the aged care, one of the pre-existing ACAT teams, or it might go to a new ACAT type team. And you might think, well, what's the difference? Well, the pre-existing ACATs hold all that knowledge and expertise, years and years of working in this space, and this new workforce, the successful tenders that are coming in, have to build that knowledge and expertise into their new workforce. What this comes back to, and what I'm going to explain as I go through the slides, is it really comes back to you. So you can't really rely on this system to give you the right approvals, to get the right support, because you might be dealing with staff who just don't have a great understanding or have the knowledge of the sector. So it comes back to your being prepared when you contact My Aged Care, and then at every step as you go along getting assessment, being able to convey your needs in detail. So empowering you to get the right approvals, or how to feel like this after you've had an assessment. You don't contact My Aged Care until you've absolutely reflected on what your needs are and why you can't do the things that you used to be able to do. So people find this question really difficult when we ask them. So, typically if we say to someone, what are you struggling with? What do you need help with? And people will say, the older person will say, I'm okay, I don't really need any help, because my daughter's doing the cooking for me during the week, and then I just heat up the meals, and my grandson is mowing the yard for me, and my son-in-law is so beautiful, he comes over and changes the light bulbs and cleans out the gutter, and we're going, well, there you go. That indicates a level of support. So people don't recognise that informal support that they're getting from their family or friends or neighbours actually reveals a level of care. So when we say to people, in preparing to contact My Aged Care, think about all that help that you're getting. Is your neighbour taking you to the local bridge group each week because you've lost your confidence in driving? So you need to write all that down. Because that's going to be what you're going to inform My Aged Care with when you contact them. The other thing that people find very difficult, because they just live with it day to day, is what's stopping them from being able to do the things they do. So we're talking about chronic back pain or knee pain, or your knees are so sore that you're having trouble getting in and out of bed, or you can't get up from the chair. Impaired cognition. So when people are beginning to have memory issues, this is really important to get across as well at every step as you move through the aged care system. Impaired mobility and falls. It's a big red flag for assessors, so it's vital that you get that across as well. And the really uncomfortable conversation that no one wants to have is incontinence. So if older people are not wanting to go out into the community because they're afraid they're going to have an accident or not find a toilet on time, this is essential that you actually convey this, again, with My Aged Care, and if you're being assessed by a RAS assessor or the ACAT. Add all of this up and it's indicating a level of need or a level of care. And the big one that really gets people to sit up and take notice, the one that's also extremely difficult to talk about, is carer stress. So we don't want loved ones to be at the point where they're experiencing so much stress and they're nearing that carer crisis stage where their caring role is unsustainable, because we know that if that carer can't continue in that caring role, then the older person is either going to end up in hospital or prematurely admitted to an aged care facility. So again, with My Aged Care, doesn't always come up in that screening process, doesn't always come up at entry-level assessment either. The ACATs, being clinicians, are finely tuned into carer stress, but if you're making that initial call to My Aged Care and your loved one's needs are sitting at a higher level, you have to get this across then, because you may go straight to the ACAT rather than go in at entry level and then go up to the ACAT. So when you've had a chance to reflect on all of your needs and you've written them down, what you're going to do is you're going to find a support person to sit with you when you contact My Aged Care. Because My Aged Care does this. They ask you lots and lots and lots of questions, and it can be really overwhelming for people. So you will have your support person there to help you answer them and to take notes. If the person that's being asked, the older person is being asked all these questions, forgets to say something or might gloss over the reality of what's happening, then we always suggest that the support person butts in and gives some more context to what's going on at home. At this point in time as well, when you contact My Aged Care, we always suggest that people nominate a representative, because in the My Aged Care system, you might be the older person's spouse or their son or their daughter, and you might be their legally appointed substitute decision maker. But if you're not nominated as the representative within the My Aged Care system, My Aged Care will not speak to you, and they will not disclose any details about your loved one's circumstances. So when you make that initial call to My Aged Care, if that's your spouse or your son or your daughter sitting next to you, you will say to My Aged Care, I'd like to be mum's representative, and they will say to mum, Mary, do you consent to that? And she'll say yes. And then My Aged Care will give both of you an aged care identification number. And then when you call up on behalf of your older loved one, it'll be fine. They'll talk to you because you're identified in the system. So what happens next? Back in the good old days when I was an ACAT assessor, clinicians and GPs and geriatricians were looked upon favourably, and we could get people through the aged care system a lot quicker because, we had some kind of authority. But we can't anymore. It's an absolute level playing field out there. And we still hear this we see it across social media, and we hear it from people where people say, go to your GP and get them to do the referral to My Aged Care, or I'm going to get my geriatrician to do the referral, because the geriatrician in the hierarchy of older persons care is the top dog. But it doesn't add extra any weight. And in fact, I discourage people from going to their GP, because you know your circumstances best. You're best placed to convey your needs with My Aged Care and at every assessment. On that note, when you contact My Aged Care, that's what I was going to say, it's only My Aged Care who determines where your referral goes. So you can't call My Aged Care and say, I want an ACAT assessment. You absolutely can't do that. It comes down to how the quality of the information that you've got across in that initial conversation, how compelling it's been, if your loved one needs help sooner rather than later, and how much detail you're giving. And then if your loved ones have a higher need, My Aged Care will go, okay, we recognise that, we're going to send the referral up to the ACAT. But if you've missed the boat, if you've missed making that good first impression or that bad first impression, whichever way you want to view it, you may go in at entry level, it might be okay, but what it's going to mean is there's going to be a significant delay from getting from entry level up to the ACAT to get those higher levels of funding. So, just in closing, my top tips. I always impress upon people not to make that call to My Aged Care until they've done their preparation, until they've reflected on their needs and written a list. And then when they make that call to My Aged Care, have a supportive person with them that they can nominate as their representative. Once you enter the aged care system, it gets really busy and a lot of people call you, and sometimes these people don't identify who they are. So it's important to keep a list of who's calling you. I always encourage people to ask the person, what's your name, what organisation do you belong to, and what are you assessing me for? Because it's essential that you know exactly where you sit in the system so that you know what action to take as your needs increase. You need to understand that My Aged Care gets it wrong as well. Now, it doesn't happen too often, but it happens more than it should. So what we suggest to people is that if they call My Aged Care and they're getting information that perhaps doesn't sound right, or that perhaps the My Aged Care officer isn't really listening to them and rushing them through the process, that they should stop the call and just say, thank you very much, leave it for a couple of days and then call back again. And that won't disadvantage you because, like I said before, you get one chance of making the right impression. So if it's not working out for you when you make that phone call, just leave it for a couple of days and come back to it again. And people in the industry, including ACAT assessors, actually do this. The last point there is probably one of the more important points that I also try to get across to people is it takes many, many months to enter and move through the system. So when people say to me, I'm okay, I'll get the help when I really need it, it will actually be too late because your options will be limited. So at this point in time, and we deal with, we work with ACATs right across the country, it's taking about 6 to 9 months to get an ACAT assessment. Now, when you get that ACAT assessment, if you're approved for a home care package, and if you're approved at a medium priority, if you get a level 1 or a level 2 home care package, you'll be waiting for another 3 to 6 months to get that package assigned. If you're approved for one of the higher level packages, the 3s or the 4s, you'll be waiting for 9 to 12 months for that package to be assigned, which is absolutely ridiculous and impossible for a carer to wait that much longer to get the support that they need. I think I finished a little bit ahead of time, so I'm hoping some of you have some questions because I'd be delighted to answer them.
Thank you so much, Carol. We've got a couple of questions here. We've actually just got a couple of minutes left, so you've done really well. Can you choose which service provider, for example, physio, to use under the main service provider with the home care package, or is it left to the main service provider to make those choices at their discretion?
Yeah, either or, absolutely. So with home care package, it's all about consumer-directed care, and it's supposed to place the consumer at the centre of the care. So allied health can be difficult for some providers because to answer it very quickly, yes, you can absolutely choose your own physiotherapist or your own nurse or your own occupational therapist. Because the aged care sector is so heavily regulated though, your choice of physio will have to enter into a service agreement with that provider. And it's easy, like it happens all the time. Providers are subcontracting to allied health right across the country, so it's absolutely doable.
Okay, and if someone is on a disability pension, what happens when they reach aged care pension? Should they stay on disability or move to My Aged Care?
Yeah, look, that question's probably, because it's around Services Australia and Centrelink, probably a little bit beyond my scope, but anecdotally what I understand is that there's not really any difference between the disability pension and the aged pension. I'm happy to be corrected if there's someone in the room that has more knowledge of that than me. But with the pensions, I probably am not the right person to give advice on that. Perhaps... Oh, wait, we've got a very knowledgeable person down the back who's putting up her hand, and it looks like Margaret, you might be able to answer that. Yep.
They stay on that.
Oh, yes.
They don't change to aged care.
Yeah.
But if they acquire their disability after the age of 65, they cannot get NDIS.
Yes,
they must go on to aged care.
Yeah.
So you can have people who are 1 day difference in age and they'll get totally different services.
Correct. So if you are on NDIS under the disability program there, not the pension, but the NDIS, if you can stay on that after you turn 65, that's what you need to do. Yeah.
Okay, that brings us to time. Thank you so much, Coral.
Brilliant.
A big
Thank you very
round of
much.
applause for Coral.